People have asked me about ancestral supplements and what supplements they should start with in order to have an overall healing tonic as far as what type of organ meat they should be eating and stuff on a regular basis for bodybuilding or fitness purposes. And one thing the company does recommend is really the same thing that I've realized as well. It's good to have a nice blend of nutrients from many different organs and stuff. So I'd recommend that you start with the beef organs, which has a combination of 5 different organs in it, along with the bone marrow. And this is a great overall tonic for you to continually have in your diet to make sure that you're not deficient in a lot of the things that are so prevalent in organ meat. So yeah, if you want to start with ancestral supplements, I'd recommend those 2 supplements as a great overall holistic way of getting some nutrition in your diet along with your bodybuilding nutrition. So if you're interested in starting something like that, I have a link in the description for you to get 10% off ancestral supplements. And yes, I do use ancestral supplements every day.
Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Glam Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sometimes lightweight works. Now, there are lots of reasons why lightweight can work and heavyweight works. I'm really an advocate of both on your bodybuilding journey, like using heavyweights sometimes and lightweights, but sometimes what will really confuse you, especially when you know as a natural bodybuilder that you have to get stronger in order to gain muscle over the long run, is that you'll use some lightweight sometime and you'll get the most results you ever got in your life and you're like, what the hell? Like, how does this make even sense? I don't even understand it, right? So one thing you have to understand is that there are certain things that go into strength. One is coordination, which I always talk about, but the other can be subtle amounts of momentum which allow you to lift the weight. Now, when it comes down to arm curls, for instance, there are a million ways to do arm curls, and I learned the hard way from some injuries such as the dislocating shoulder and the bicep tear that I got from a chiropractor. Okay, it wasn't in the gym, I got it from a chiropractor. And I learned the hard way that just doing a standard technique for an arm curl doesn't necessarily work when you want to hit the biceps brachii or you want to hit a certain part of the muscle and really overstimulate it. So that way it is forced into growth. Now, a lot of times during the arm curl, it's an isolation movement, but at the same time, it does bring in multiple parts of the bicep and also the brachioradialis, which is crossing the elbow there, right? So there are multiple muscles that actually assist each other in lifting the weight. So you could look at it this way. There are some muscles that are getting a break while others are handling the load for a period of time, and then they pass on that load to another muscle, and then it's like a, it's like a lineup where they're handing a bucket all the way down the line. So because of that, what happens is that you are not necessarily accessing one muscle and pushing it right to the brink like you could. So by manipulating the technique, you can sometimes get these massive results and you're using less weight, because sometimes just to do a certain movement, you're actually using less weight because you don't want to cause an injury and you're wanting to keep that tension on that muscle and you're hitting fatigue way faster, but you're actually getting more results even though you're using a baby weight and you're doing something that might not look like you're doing much at all, except for the fact that you're getting this massive burn and this massive amount of fatigue in a certain part of your body. This is just using 15-pound dumbbells, right? 15 pounds. Now you see what I'm doing this, when I just bend the arms this much and come up, I'm just using the bicep. Now, if I come down further, I'm going to recruit the bicep brachii, along with also exploiting any instability I have in my shoulders. So say you have a torn labrum like I do, or a torn rotator cuff on here and a torn bicep. When I straighten the arm, this will cause those muscles to have to come into play, and I'm also not using the constant tension principle on the muscle I want to hit. So yeah, although this will look like cheating, it really isn't for one muscle group. I'm actually not bending the arm on purpose to keep that tension on a specific muscle group. Now, when I externally rotate, I get a little bit more stress in that bicep brachii, but you can also bring the arms in a little bit too. You might find that you feel it in a different area, which is also good. So whichever way feels right to you, just try them out. Just adjust around a bit, right? You definitely can feel a certain muscle group hitting failure and not a bunch of other ones coming in to take the stress away, right? So yeah, you look like a big weak baby, but it works. You notice I'm not supinating and pronating, I'm trying to keep that stress right on the bicep. And because of this reason, that's the other reason why you want to keep this type of movement light because you're not protecting the bicep brachii at the bottom. So that means you don't want to be using super heavy weight and strain, right? So case in point, back in the day when I was training quite a few people, I had this one client, he didn't have any fingers on one hand. He had an accident or whatever, so he had to have a special glove on this hand. And this one he could grip, right? Of course, because his right hand was good, his left hand wasn't. So he had to basically put a dumbbell into this type of harness on this hand and lift this weight, but he could only lift in a certain way and keep constant tension on the bicep. Otherwise, if he let the dumbbell come all the way down, the dumbbell would fall out of his hand, right? It would hit the ground or whatever and he'd lose his balance. So he was forced to stay in this constant tension sort of motion. Now also, because of the situation with the strap that he had on his hand, he had to use light weight. He was only using 15 to 20 pound dumbbells tops on the incline. Most of the time it was closer to 15, but his arms ballooned. Like his biceps were huge. People were like, what the hell are you doing for your biceps? Why are your biceps so big? And I remember him turning to me one day and saying, I don't understand. He goes, Jason, I'm not really using much weight. Why are my arms getting so big? He couldn't get it, right? And the truth was that he was forced to be super strict and use one part of his body so much so that it was being forced to develop. So he wasn't recruiting the brachioradialis across the forearm. He wasn't recruiting some other muscle groups, but he was definitely recruiting that biceps brachii, and that was what was giving him massive results. So this is a typical scenario where lightweight can sometimes give you a massive amount of growth in a certain area. So the same thing can go with lateral raises. The same thing can go with any sort of isolation movement, where you'll find that when you're doing the movement a certain way, but then you're using lightweight, but you're really making sure that only this muscle is being hit the whole time, and the lightweight's allowing you to do that because you don't have to bring in any sort of momentum, then you can sometimes get great results. So this is why some of the old school bodybuilders that talked about it's not about how much weight you lift, it's about how you lift the weight. There is some relevance to that principle, but I think people get a little bit too fanatical about this sometimes. They say, oh yeah, this is the one thing that works for bodybuilding or growing muscle, so then they always are doing super strict with everything, and then of course they're finding a different weak link in their training where they're not really getting those heavy compounds on the system, not developing the overall system or the endocrine system and the nervous system. They're not really stimulating that, which is also a part of growing as a natural bodybuilder. But like I said, sometimes the lightweight can allow you to overstimulate a certain area because you can facilitate a certain technique which will basically make sure that certain muscles are hit, and they're hit absolutely, instead of you bringing in momentum or bringing in other muscle groups to assist with the movement. So yeah, this is a secret ninja tip. It's a secret natural galant bodybuilding ninja tip. Don't share it with all your friends because you don't want them to become ninjas too, because if you become a ninja, then you have something over on them. You know, you could just like, hey, yeah. You don't have to worry about them coming after you because, you know, you got the ninja powers. So I hope this helps you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgalantbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the patron supporters, and take care for now. Mountain.